Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Sanchez, and for our literature review, I wanted to talk about sleep and how different sexes experience sleep differently and sleep disorders. I was interested in this topic because this tends to be overlooked in medicine and research, but of course, it's important because we all sleep and particularly I'm a female, and from the findings of the literature review, sleep might affect me differently, and I never knew that. So let's dig in. So we're gonna be talking about a couple of different things. So sex differences in general, a study done in college students. We have obstructive sleep apnea, some interesting things we found within hormones, some statistics about mental health, why this matters, and a call to action. So, first of all, of course, we all sleep. We all need it at the end of the day. It's for our well-being, and we need it to replenish our physical and mental health. Um, of course, as college students, we all understand that our sleeping habits don't tend to be the best, and actually, we tend to be the most sleep-deprived group. Um, So, poor sleep, as you know, you might have experienced, it affects your memory, your mood, and even your academic performance, and of course, your health. So, of course, more research on sleep is needed to understand this, and then the fact that sex can have an influence on sleep or lead to different health outcomes. So, of course, this is a big question. Why do males and females experience sleep disorders, and sleep-related disorders differently? By sleep-related disorders, I mean things that happen as a result from sleep disorders. So it could be something to do with your heart or your brain or something like that. And the fact that males and females might have different outcomes with this. So we're trying to figure out, where is this coming from? Is it something hormonal? Is it something social? And what's going on in healthcare and medicine that they're not really implementing this yet. So first of all, in general, we have sleep differences by sex. So here's a fact that females have more slow wave or deep sleep and higher sleep efficiency. And then males actually tend to have more fragmented sleep and lighter sleep stages. So here are two charts. Um, this one right here on the left is for stage one of sleep, and then the one on the right indicates stage three to four. The circles represent females, and the males are represented by triangles. So on the first chart here, you can see that males spend a little bit more time in stage one of sleep. So this is a percent of precedence or time spent in the stage one, and males are a little bit higher than the females on here. On the right side, though, you can see that they switched. So the circles are on top, meaning the females are staying in stage three to four of sleep a little bit longer, and deep sleep is stage three. And then it actually kind of goes down for males. So for this one, you can see that it's true that males spend a little bit more time in the lighter sleep stages. And fragmented sleep means like some disturbances while you sleep, or you get interrupted between stages. That's what that means. So um males tend to have the fragmented sleep and more awakenings during the night. The thing is that for this study is that the differences here, they persist even after they controlled for variables like age and other health conditions. So this might suggest that there's something else going on and that it might be hormonal. Now, there was a study that was done on college students. This included over 7,600 college students, and what they found is that 62% of them had poor sleep quality. So that's not too hard to deduce, even as, an individual college student, you can probably come to terms with the fact that we're not good sleepers. We're always busy. But the thing is that females reported more disturbances in their sleep and more daytime dysfunction. So they reported this even though they weren't necessarily sleeping fewer hours. They still reported these things, but they were sleeping the same amount as the males. So this suggests that, the quantity of sleep doesn't always correlate to the quality. So females might be experiencing these sort of dysfunctions, and it has nothing to do with the amount of sleep that they're getting. So another study focused on obstructive sleep apnea or OSA. So this is something important to think about is that males were diagnosed more often, but the females were actually probably the ones that were just diagnosed. So it's not that males have OSA more, but it's the fact that females might not have been diagnosed at all. This might be because the females presented with atypical symptoms of OSA. So that would be fatigue, mood swings, and insomnia, when the men just presented with snoring and excessive sleepiness. So there's kind of a difference right here into why females might have been underdiagnosed because males seem to have been the standard for the diagnoses and their symptoms. But this is why the research is important here. We need to figure out how different sexes present these disorders differently. Now, something interesting that two articles actually spoke about was how estrogen and progesterone, so hormones, can influence protective factors of OSA by having some sort of effect on respiratory control. So if you remember, sleep apnea is when you're having breathing problems when you're sleeping. And what they found is that, in particular in menopausal women, they deduced that these hormones, estrogen and progesterone, were some sort of protective factor against sleep apnea. So you can see right here in the graph on the right, we have premenopausal females on the blue and postmenopausal on the orange. So if you remember, um, once you undergo menopause, you're losing these two hormones right here. So what they're suggesting right here is that the premenopausal females or the orange line, once they lost that estrogen and progesterone, the prevalence of obstructive sleep apnea went up, and that's exactly what you see right here. We also have this three-dimensional plot on the left that includes the prevalence, age, and how much of the hormone you have in your body. So at the top, if you're over 80, you're probably postmenopausal, and you're more likely to have obstructive sleep apnea. So again, that same point was taken in a different article, which I found was interesting. So if you have one takeaway from this presentation, just think about how estrogen and progesterone may affect sleep disorders. So, um, again, the hormones can affect sleep architecture, meaning the different stages of sleep and how you experience them. But there's also the sex-specific gene expressions that are BDNF or FOSB, and they react differently to loss of sleep and in males and females. So there's a difference here to consider. I believe this article was referring to a study done in rodents, um, which, it isn't humans, but the thing is, studies on rodents are usually a precursor to, studies in humans and behavior of humans. So it's something important to look at. And here is a picture of those two genes that I was talking about. Then we have mortality and mental health. So if you have daytime sleepiness, you are more likely to have a higher mortality rate, in particular with females, if you have obstructive sleep apnea, but not in males. So in terms of mental health, the depression risk was actually different as well. For males, it had a U-shaped sort of curve on a plot, but it was linear for females. So of course, lastly, why does any of this matter? Of course, we all sleep, like I mentioned at the beginning. But in particular, we found out that women are underdiagnosed, but they're actually more likely to be vulnerable to sleep disorders. So this is something that we need to keep thinking about because if any of us go into research, maybe we should bring this up, how different sexes get, you know, clinician bias, when getting diagnosed. And it could lead to very destructive results for males and females. We don't want any more females getting underdiagnosed because their symptoms presented differently as to what, the standard male symptoms were. And of course, this is for everyone. Sleep, affects our health, our well-being, our mental health. So it's important to look at. And we might even end up figuring out that maybe sleep is a sex-linked trait. And, it's actually depending on our chromosomes, how we experience sleep. So it's definitely something that benefits um all of the sexes to look into and it's for the benefit of all sexes to keep this research going on. And of course, that was my call to action. We need more inclusive research on sleep. We need to not convolute the data between males and females because there actually might be a huge difference between them that we need to consider. And that would be it. Thank you. I hope you learned something about sex and sleep disorders. Thank you.